Good. We're up in Maine,
Oh,
and the only thing that's tricky is the storm Lee
yeah.
could could come up this way, but other than that, everything is good.
I just want to tweak my light here because I thought that I was going to be in a good spot, but I guess it looks all right. And you're up in Maine now, yeah?
Yeah.
I,
And
I
where are you again?
I'm in Scarsdale, New York,
Right. Okay.
and not too far away from um, Blairstown, which I believe uh,
Yeah.
you call a local neighborhood for you.
Yeah. Definitely. We taught at Blair. Kids went there, and then we've stayed in that area since they've moved on.
That's
So
great.
it's
I've
real
been to
good.
Blairstown a couple of times, and there was that very tall, small horror movie filmed there a long, long time ago.
Time
And
ago.
so I'm one of those guys that, and I'll talk to you about some Atlantic City locations shortly. But I did want to start off by showing you that I'm properly attired. Um,
Oh, that's great.
let me first
Oh,
just
by the
say,
way, that was named after Steve Carlton.
was that right?
Yeah.
I was watching the film again yesterday just for the umpteenth time, and as the cast was going through, I saw Miriam Flynn's name
Yeah.
as Mrs. Parks,
Yeah.
and I had no idea because I'm a big National Lampoon's Vacation fan as
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
and I had no idea that she was part of this film, and also that she had been married to Will.
Exactly. And
That's
Judith, my wife, is also in the movie playing the role of Mrs. Appleby.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah.
That's
But
great.
there's a funny story there. She didn't totally love the actor she had to do it with. So when I asked her to play the role, she said, okay, but separate beds.
It's always a scene that breaks me up because Mr. Appleby is laying there completely oblivious to everything kind of that's been happening around him for
Yeah.
years. What's a dink, you know? Uh, but let me just first start by saying thank you. And I have found that in the last 30 plus years of being in love with this film, there are very tangible parts of it that I can absolutely understand where my emotional connection comes in.
Hmm.
There are some parts of it still, even as recently as yesterday, where there's something between the acting, the writing, the soundtrack, the visuals. It's something that I often have a hard time explaining what that is to people who I'm explaining the movie to. Uh,
Right.
and I give it that, well, it's a coming of age film, uh, and it involves flashbacks and an amazing cast, so well written and shot with a real emotional punch to it. But maybe the best thing to do would be to ask you, where did you get the story from? I know that you have a strong connection sort of with the subject matter.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
and
do.
so how did this come about?
Well, Will and I, first of all, had been partners together at Second City, and we were there, and we were prolific in terms of we produced a lot of material. We were a good team together, and now we move out to Los Angeles, and we go separate ways. But I, at that time, was on the Newhart show,
Right.
Bob Newhart, and at the end of the second season, for reasons that had nothing to do with me, um, the kind of a fight between Bob Newhart and the writers. And that's a story unto itself. I ended up getting fired out of that scenario, but that's okay because I got fired for those reasons. When I first started out, I'd always done my own material, so it was very hard for me to do sitcom, and I got a feel for it. And then when I got a feel for it, the writers wrote too much for me. And as a writer myself, I knew that Bob was upset because they were writing a lot of episodes in the second season for me and not for him. So I actually made a suggestion to Will to pitch an idea to the Newhart people, Barry Kemp, that you get Bob out of the inn. You get Bob to work at a public TV station to interview people with books. This would give him another life outside of home. Will pitched it. They sold it. But unfortunately, the guy that played the role, Peter, what's his name?
Solari?
Peter, yes, Solari, he ended up replacing me. So I kind of did myself in. But when that was over, and I remember when I told Judith, because we were about to have a second child, we were doing construction on the house because I assumed I had a job for the third season. And, you know, it didn't happen. And Judith said to me, something better will come. You know, I always remember that. Because she's in show business and she understood that, you know, when something doesn't work out, often things open a door, and this opened the door to Stealing Home. Will and I sat down and we said, look, if we're going to if we're not going to be in show business, if this is the end for me, let's write something we care about. Let's write something that we give a damn about, and not write about something that we think will sell as a movie, with the idea that our children someday could read it. And so we began, and we were really excited about this idea because it was suddenly, we're writing about stuff we really knew. And what I knew was the summer my father died, had been in a car accident. And also I knew about the girl that Jodie played a role in that summer. And she, 2 years after my father died, she died. And so I said, this is the material that let's write about this. And we started to write by legal pad at different restaurants in the Palisades in LA. And after they throw us out, we go to another one, get thrown out, get to another one, thrown out, come back to the other one. We wrote it by hand, and it took 3 weeks. And we wrote about basically the story you're reading. And 3 weeks later, we sold it. It was like a miracle of God. And we really enjoyed it because we both had similar backgrounds, and we invented the role of Billy Wyatt. It wasn't based on anyone, it was based on the idea of a baseball player and stuff. And so it began really with a firing. The movie began with a firing, and that led me into a career of writing movies. And Stealing Home was the initiator.
So with your background in comedy, really very extensive, between Second City, Newhart, and the screenwriting of Back to School,
right?
With also Harold Ramis,
right?
Was moving into Stealing Home territory, which is not comedy really per se. There's great banter between Billy McNamara and John Silverman. That is funny, but was it a difficult step for you to make to go into sort of this dramatic, heartfelt kind of subject matter?
I think that was the voice that Will and I had. We had a voice. He had a voice, I had a voice, but together we had this separate voice, and that separate voice was funny, but also with drama. That's where we were really comfortable together. And what happened was it wasn't ended up being that difficult. It's exactly what I wanted to do, but we made a little formula, and the formula was great. Stealing Home is a tragedy with jokes. Tragedy with jokes. So therefore, the rhythm of the piece is to, have a dramatic setting and then something funny. So you have the scene with Jodie and the small boy going down to the shore, stealing the car, and then coming back. You have them kind of having a scene, but then they get caught by the parents, which was funny.
I'm gonna try this for a second here while you just
Yeah, you're
mentioned
welcome,
that.
brother. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, the boy had never acted before. We pulled him out of a camp. And
really.
yeah, he was just and Jody, who had been a child actress, really took care of him. She knew how to kind of bring him along. And so that scene, or the scene where Appleby, accuses him of having sex with his prom date and starts throwing his things, or the scene with Miriam Flynn when she comes down the stairs
Yeah,
and they're going to get caught. They're going to get caught. So what you do is when you go to something heavy, then it was important to bring it back with something light, so you're kind of you have a rhythm that doesn't get too heavy and also isn't too. And then that took us. Remember, from the time we wrote it and sold it, it took 4 years before we made it, and
really.
we wrote a lot of different versions. Yeah, that's was shot in the house of the boy playing the small Billy. That was actually
Really.
his mother's home.
It's one of that scene in particular is truly one of the most riotous scenes in the film. I don't know any mother that I've ever come across that is so oblivious to me being with their daughter that they wouldn't even maybe take the newspaper away for a second. And oh, if my head wasn't attached, I'd lose that too. But it was so perfectly done. The music uh, is is perfect in there. And I want to try to not jump around too much, but I would love to talk to you about how you went about casting the film and how you came to some of the decisions that you made. There are people in this movie, most any of them, even people like Mark Harmon, Jodie Foster, who exploded and remain tremendously popular working actors and actresses. But to this day, if I see any of these people in movies or TV shows, for me and for a few of my other really rabid Stealing Home fans, it's always, oh, he was in Stealing Home. Oh, she was in Stealing Home. I love Silence of the Lambs. I love The Accused. Um, but and Taxi Driver. But Jodie Foster for me embodies this movie. And Mark Harmon, although never having played scenes together, is just perfect. William McNamara is perfect. How did you come to these decisions? How did you get someone like Jodie Foster
Okay.
to get interested in it?
So Jody came out of Yale Drama School and was still getting her feet, herself together. She hadn't done anything really big. And she, like all the other actors, it begins with writing, really liked the story and really liked that a female was playing the kind of heroic older figure. She was the taking risks, running with the bulls. She was a daredevil, and she loved that she would be the mentor to this younger boy. And so she was drawn in by that. And Mark Harmon was a different story. The producers at Columbia, where it first was, didn't want him at all.
Really?
They wanted to have someone like what's his name from Bull from was a Bull
Oh,
Kevin.
Kevin Costner.
They wanted Kevin Costner, but Kevin Costner actually was doing another movie with the same producer we had of Stealing Home. And in fact, when our photographer got done with Stealing Home, he went and shot Bull Durham. So Bull Durham was connected, and they wanted. So we lost Costner, but I believed in Mark. I thought because he was the athlete, and they made me do a screen test, which was very interesting, which I did with Mark, and had it hitting grounders and showing that he had the physical skills. And eventually we won that, meaning that we cast Mark. And then and I don't have the credits in front of me, but we had an amazing casting person who I guess I'm blanking on her name, and she was able to, once we had Jody, she was able to fill in with the other characters that are in it, Appleby and Harold. I asked Harold. Harold and I've been an actor in 4 of his movies, and so here he was playing the role that I would have played if I So I asked him personally to do that. We had Mark, and then we got Richard Jenkins, who's, come on.
Love that guy.
Yeah, I love that guy. And John Shea,
Yep.
and Blair Brown,
And Helen Hunt.
and Helen Hunt, who came in. And I think all that has to do with people who read something, and like you, when you saw it, somehow were moved by this movie and wanted to be a part of it. They didn't care what part, but they wanted to be in it. And so we ended up gathering just a tremendous cast, bit by bit. But it probably begins with Jody, because then everybody knows Jody, and they're thinking, if she's saying it's okay, it's probably okay.
Right.
And that's kind of how we arrived at it.
Do you remember the first shot that you shot for the film?
Yeah, the first shot. Well, I prepared a shot for the second day 6 months before, because I knew that if Jody didn't believe in the directing, I'd be fired, or Will and I would be fired. And so the first day we did the scene where she's just practicing her ballet by the fence and the parents are getting ready to leave. And then we shot, probably later in the afternoon, the scene on top of the porch.
Yep.
And then the second day, if you look back at it, this is my most proud shot.
Well, now I don't mean to interrupt you. Before you
No, it's fine.
before you go there, if you're going to go where I hope you're going to go, 32 years ago, I was a senior at Roger Williams College in Rhode Island. Now, I've mentioned this to you in a couple of emails.
Yeah.
Back then, no emails, no text messages, no internet.
Right.
But the movie, we're talking 91 maybe around at this point, and the movie is only a couple of years old, but it's now been it's found a life on videotape.
Right.
And a friend of mine who I was sort of sharing this dorm area with asked me if I liked baseball, and I did. And they said, "Do you like Jodie Foster?" And this was now Silence of the Lambs was huge.
Yeah, she was a star.
And I said, "I love Jodie Foster." And they said, "Well, you got to check out this movie. It's called Stealing Home." And I looked at the box and I said, I'm going to see it because Jodie's in it, and she's right there on the cover. And I like Mark Harmon. The Presidio was a movie. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I gave it a shot, and as soon as I put it in, seeing him lay out the baseball field,
Yeah.
I was in, and I made call after call, and I don't know how this happened, but I can almost remember it had to be, I called the Screen Actors Guild, and I said, "Who is Steven Kampmann's agent? Because I got to talk to him. I have to. And I have to tell him I love his film."
Wow.
Somehow, word got to you. And one evening, thankfully, I was sitting in my room and my phone rang. And again, no cell phones, no computers. Had a proper phone with a cord.
Right.
And I answered the phone, and I hear, "Hi, this is Steven Kampmann. I heard you were looking to talk to me." And I don't, in a million years, I don't expect you to remember this, but it has been ingrained in my head and my heart for 30 plus years. And I stood there looking at my phone like, what the hell is happening? I wasn't thinking this could be a prank. Who would know?
Right.
And you were kind enough to spend, I don't know, 20 minutes on the phone with me, talking to me a little bit about the film. And I remember only 2 things specifically. I had asked you what your favorite scene in the film was.
Yeah.
And this is what you told me. And if it's still true, I'm going to feel real good about my memory. You said that the scene after Billy's dad died in the car accident, the three of them are sitting on the porch.
Mhm.
Jody's behind them in the doorway,
Right,
listening to them tell some stories. Jody walks into the house and
right,
goes upstairs
right,
to see Billy McNamara out on the roof, but it's this beautiful crane shot with no cuts,
right.
and then zooms in on the two of them, and you told me that was your favorite shot.
That's it. That's,
Is-
it's a one shot, two locations, one shot where Jody is in both scenes. So the camera was established as a kind of master shot of them on the porch. Blair Brown gets up and moves to the pillar. It comes in for a close-up, so now you're in a one shot. She does her lines, and then that's the moment. Like you think, okay, but goes, no, we're not done here. And up, and there we've already established Billy. This is where he goes. He goes through the roof when he was small. And then you notice Jody arrives in the window and comes down and sits next to him in a two shot. And then they have their thing, and then it cuts to in the car. And that was my favorite. And not only was it my favorite shot, Jody recognized that this was a good shot. And I wanted it early to establish confidence with her. And it did, it worked. So
Oh,
it was important to continue the show and give her confidence. And it also was, exciting.
there you
Yeah,
go.
there it is. There she has come out of the window. So she loved this idea of a one shot, two locations.
Yeah, it's
And
not
that
only
was shot the second day of the shoot.
and I since that conversation with you back then, every time I see the movie, I'm very proud to say I know that that's the director's favorite scene in the film. Uh,
It is.
and and the other question I remember asking you very vividly, and your answer was, were there any scenes that you shot that didn't make it into the film? And you told me one example,
Yeah.
and um, I don't know if it's the example, but what you told me was there was a scene where you had filmed Katie's suicide, more or less,
Mhm.
where there was a gunshot and
Yeah.
birds flying off of
Yeah.
sea smoke.
And
Um,
we actually shot that. Yeah.
were there any other deleted scenes, or
Yeah.
and why did you choose not to include that?
I think it crossed a line. I think when you're doing something with the balance of it's funny, but it's coming of age and all this, the gunshot is too vivid. It's too real. And so while I appreciated the shot and I appreciated the idea of it, the decision was it was a little rough.
Hmm.
The shot that I regret not putting in was shot with Mark Harmon in a bathroom at a bus station. And he's trying to get his hands dry and he's pulling the paper down. It's not coming out. And he finally rips it and then he just smashes everything in the room. And this was a chance to express his kind of own anger, his own, and I regret took it out. I also regret taking it out because we had the name of the history of stealing home was it was picked up by Columbia Pictures. And the executive was a guy named David Picker. And Will and I didn't get along with him. And he waited. I'd gone back and did locations in Philadelphia, everything, we had cast it, we're doing everything. And Will and I had to go to Sundance to kind of go through the dance. We were new directors and go to Sundance with Bob Redford. And Picker waited until we were there, 3 weeks before starting of shooting, and he dropped the movie from Columbia.
Oh,
He did a real shot, and fortunately, we were Jeff Berg was our agent who ran ICM, and he got us in with Warner Brothers because they wanted to be in business with Jodie, and that's how we got picked up. But in that scene, we had all sorts of swear words to Picker on the wall, like graffiti. You know, F you, Picker. You're an asshole, Picker. This, everywhere we had it. So when I cut it, I missed having that in it, and I miss having the expression of feeling by Mark. You know, it was a good scene, and that's the scene, one scene I'd want to put back in.
And that would have been, I guess, towards the beginning when
Yeah.
after Blair Brown calls him to come home.
He's at the bus station getting ready to come. It's raining. He's in the bathroom. He gets, and then we just cut to the back of the bus and it's now headed home.
Right.
So yeah, it was in the beginning of the movie.
Did Mark have any feelings one way or another once it was realized that the scene wasn't going to be in the film?
Well, he felt the same way about Picker because Picker didn't believe in Mark Harmon. So
Really?
oh yeah, no, but Picker was the guy that said, I don't want Harmon. Picker's the guy that I had to go out and shoot the the tape to, what do you call it? To prove that Harmon could play baseball and do all that. That was Picker. Picker didn't want Mark because he thought he was a TV star, which is true. Mark is a huge TV star, but and that really built a loyalty with Mark and I because we stood by him and he stood by us. He was has always been a fan of the movie, always has promoted it when he can. So yeah, that was the one scene I'd probably want back. But you know, when you're dealing with a studio and you're doing a personal movie, if you can get 85 to 90% of what you want into the film, you're good. Because most films get slashed and cut, but I always would say them, I always say, for you guys, this is a movie. For me, it's a home movie.
Yeah.
And I can't screw this up, you know. So I was pretty fierce about defending the movie. And but anyway, that's a little background. And even how we got it at Columbia was you've seen some of these movies. A guy named David Putnam who did Chariots of the Gods, what was it, the something fields set in Laos.
The Killing Fields. Yeah.
David Putnam was a great producer, and he took over the presidency of Columbia. And Will and I, you know, when this first began, Stealing Home, Neil Jordan the director was brought into Stealing Home, and we wrote different versions of the movie. The producer wanted it to be all about his son, and so we had to go through all that. And finally, Will and I just took a stand. We put the draft together we thought was really good, and we went to Putnam and said, you can do whatever you want with this, but if you're going to make this movie, we're going to direct it. We're going to be the people involved. And Putnam, because he was an artist himself, gave it the go-ahead. So and it was Pickers, the guy that killed it.
So I wonder, well, maybe you know, once the film was released, what did Picker have to say after he saw the finished product? If he saw the finished product, did he eat any of his words? Do you know?
Well, I had no more contact with him, but I think he would have said, this movie is a failure. It came out on a weekend, didn't do particularly well. He had no idea that it would have legs, like you were discussing. And so I now was dealing exclusively with Warner Brothers.
Speaking of the legs of the film, did you have any sense when you were making the film that, I mean, how could you? But in the past 35 years, with the other things that your name is attached to, I was just talking with my girlfriend last night, and she was reading some of my little notes here and there. She said, "Oh, he was on the Newhart show. Oh, that Rodney Dangerfield movie. Oh, did you have any thought over the last 35 years of just how much uh, adoration Stealing Home has? It's almost, I don't like to use the word cult classic for a movie like this.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of is. I've experienced so many things because of this movie, and in large part also because of social media. Because when I post things like an anniversary or something special, I get people that pop in, people who I know and people who I don't know. They will, oh my God, I love this movie. This is my favorite movie. It makes me cry every time I see it. Oh my God, Jodie Foster, did you do you catch any of that as time goes by? Do you hear the
Yeah. Surprisingly little in some ways, but then things show up, like people that get married who use some of the music from Stealing Home. And I've run into that, and other people as the years have gone by. In fact, I just had this with a up here in Maine. I was uh, up at the swimming pool, and I was next to an 82-year-old guy, very grouchy, very grouchy, not friendly guy that I've known for years, but haven't spoken to him. But he swims laps every day, and I started to do some swimming, and so we were sitting there, and out of the blue, he turns, he says, "That movie you made, Stealing Home," he said, "I liked it," and that
did he
was
touch
all.
the paint?
I was in the pool with someone, with a child kid that was swimming there, and I told her about, when you get older, touching the greens, good luck. I gave her that whole, and my brother and I, David, when years later, when my older brother had passed away, my brother and I snuck into my grandfather's house that had been sold, and we on like we looked like soldiers, we're kind of on our stomachs, and we slid in and we touched the grain. And
That's
my
fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty cool because we thought that was the thing. So um, in some ways, I don't hear about it, but when I run into people, generally speaking, now that I run into people who know about Stealing Home, they'll say I really like that movie, and that's been said. That's been even Harold Ramis didn't, when he first did it, didn't think it was good, and he told me later, 10 years later, said that's a really good movie.
So I had the good fortune of meeting Harold Ramis. I want to say it was maybe 2006 or 2007. I was on Martha's Vineyard with a buddy of mine, and
Mhm.
they were doing a toga party at one of the nightclubs out there. And there was a Blues Brothers review band and two guys that looked the spitting image of those two. And it was this group of people, the Animal House, the Blues Brothers, the Caddyshack and Stripes, and all of these fans, whatever. And Harold was there. And when I found out that he was going to be there, the first thing I wanted to do was get him to sign something from Caddyshack because, again, it's one of my top
Right.
favorite films. But then very quickly I said, "Oh, but wait a minute, he was in Stealing Home as well." Like, I don't think Ghostbusters. I think Caddyshack and I think Stealing Home, and then I do Ghostbusters, Stripes. So I raced to the island's only video store, I guess, at the time, and I was looking for anything, Stealing Home, Stripes, anything. They had a Caddyshack DVD, which I bought, and then I went to this event, and I was chatting with him just for a couple of minutes, and I asked him to sign the DVD, which he did, and I said, "I don't want to take up a lot of your time, but I'm going to throw you a curveball and talk to you about how much I adore Stealing Home." And he was so taken aback. He gave me
Wow.
this big hug, and he said, "Be my friend."
Wow. That's a
And
good story.
it
I love
was
that.
it's unforgettable. And I have a great picture that we took together. And when I look at that picture, I see Appleby faster than I see Egon or any. I get. Stephen, this is when I said at the beginning, there are things that I can explain it to you why this movie lives in my heart. There are other things that I can't explain. And I think a lot of it also is David Foster is to blame. Um,
Yeah.
who's everything, every note that comes off of this guy's fingers is
Yeah.
majestic. How
He's,
did how did you come to David Foster with this with
or
this?
you get a completed film, now you're into post-production, you start interviewing people to do the music. And we went with some, big figures that were big names in the business. And David was established, but he wasn't the star. He hadn't done Barbra Streisand. He's never done a movie. So for never having done a movie, that for him is a challenge. And he came and saw the movie. About maybe the third guy we brought in, and he just was like, "I'm all over this. I get this. I know what to do. I love this. Please, I want to make this." And we just went, "Go for it." And I can't tell you how exciting it was when we went out to his house in Malibu, and he played the theme song for the first time, and I just went, "Wow."
Just on
This,
the piano?
yeah,
It's
yeah, he played it.
about 20 minutes before we got on here at Zoom, there's a big keyboard upstairs in near my in a guest room, and I'm a musician. I play the drums. When I was younger, I played the piano and the trumpet a little bit, but I would always noodle around on the piano. And you hear certain pieces of music in your life where you wind up tinkering on it or playing along with it. And the theme from Stealing Home is one of those things because it's so very front and center with a piano melody, and that
Yeah,
saxophone also pops
yeah.
in. So I was just upstairs a little while ago refreshing my memory if I could with one finger play the theme, which I kind of can still do. Um, but I think that the music married with what was shot
Mhm.
has a huge amount to do with the overall emotional component of how a movie hits you. And in this case, it's I hear there's the scene with Jodie and Billy McNamara that last after they have their little one night uh,
Mhm.
at Sea Smoke, and you hear Foster's music, the piano, the notes are sort of in the background, and she's there with the bag, and she says, "I love you, Billy boy," and it freezes, and Mark Harmon then says, "That's the last time I ever saw her." Boy, that kicks me right in the gut every time. And yesterday, I'm sitting here like this. Afterwards, I said, it's every time. It's perfect.
It's and movies can take on if a movie works, it needs a lot of good luck. So, I needed people not to want to do the music so I could get David. I didn't know David Foster, but we were giving David Foster a chance. And I'm always a believer, those are the people you want. It's not the baseball player that gets the big contract, it's before he gets the contract. David wanted to write a song for music. He was putting his soul into it, and it showed. And um, yeah, it just it blended for what. And when you make a movie, then you hear the music, it expands the movie. It suddenly isn't talking in images. It's what you said. The music is the feeling of the movie, and,
It absolutely is. And
and you got it.
some of that other score that he's done with St. Elmo's Fire, these instantly recognizable themes where, like, you could say that's John Williams or
Oh, he
that's
did do. That's right. He did do one movie. Did you say it's
St. Elmo's Fire.
yeah, he did do that. A few, but you can tell the David Foster if you listen to that music.
Oh yeah,
It's not dissimilar from Stealing Home, but they're in the same arena.
very.
Saxophones and other items. But that was exciting. Yeah, that's. I think that's what you were saying in the beginning. I think you need that kind of music for that kind of movie. You must have something that resonates with you.
and deeply, because and in the 80s, 87, I guess, when it's in production, the soundtracks and scores were, on one hand, very, very similar in sound, certainly the kinds of instruments that were popular back then, a lot of electronic types of instruments, electronic percussions and keyboards. David Foster's music was always very piano centric, uh,
Hmm,
and it's a very telling way that he plays, so that if you're a fan of any composer, it's you're able to really tell very quickly, oh, that's David Foster, or that's
right,
Beethoven, or so
right,
on.
definitely.
But in yet another baseball analogy, having him do it is a home run for this film.
Yep.
Um,
But my point was, um, that's when things begin to fall into place. It's like there are other forces involved I mean, like we should have been killed when Columbia dropped the movie, right? But it didn't. It got picked up, and it got picked up at a better studio because they were used so friendly and let us shoot the movie that we wanted to shoot. So, when I think back the whole process is just one large act of faith. That something good will come out of this, and
that
you keep just trying to get really good people, good actors, good photographers. Like Bobby Byrne was the cinematographer, great guy. He also did a lot of other movies, including Bull Durham. And he was a fantastic, easy to get along with, smart. Um, and that wasn't me hiring. I mean, I interviewed him and I liked him. But I had a producer named Hank Mugine who had done a lot of Bird Rental movies, and he was so experienced that we couldn't have made the movie without Hank. Hank knew how to hide money, so when it came to a rainy day, and we needed a shot, he knew where to go to get the money. He put it away for this kind of day. Well, if I didn't have Hank Mugine, I don't think we could have. I don't think the movie would have gotten made. So you need all those moments to happen because there were so many moments when we thought it's not going to happen.
Tell me a little bit about some of these locations, like this one here. Uh,
Governor, governor's mansion, New Jersey governor's mansion, and down at the shore near Seaside.
Now that's it's Island Beach State Park,
Yeah,
and I know that it's however long it's been the governor's summer residence.
yeah.
How did you go about settling on that? How did you get access to that? It's a place where not long after you called me in college, I said to a buddy of mine, we're going down to the Jersey Shore or Atlantic City or so. We're going to find out where this house is. We didn't know it was the governor's summer house at
Right.
the time, but we were going to do a road trip from Rhode Island, where we were in college, and and find it, because this was real, like it was one of these pilgrimages we wanted to make, just because we needed to be close to sea smoke. And then we found out it was the governor's summer residence. I made calls to the park itself. I spoke to the superintendent. Could I go just take a picture? It's the movie, and he knew exactly. Um, this was at the time he was still the superintendent from when you guys made the film. But how did you secure permission to do the shooting in there?
It's a very interesting problem we had because my uncle, a lot of that summer story with Jody and with Blair Brown was based on my uncle's house down in Cedars. I think it's
Harvey
called
Cedars?
Harvey Cedars.
It's funny you
And it
say that.
goes,
I spent some summers down there as a kid.
you did?
Yeah.
Well, he had a house, and that in that time was like there weren't that many people. There was like one house per half acre. He might even had an acre. And then we went down to scout it. There were 8 houses per half acre.
Wow.
It took me a long time to even find his house. So we went, well, this isn't going to work because the 50s didn't have this population. And then Hank Moongene found, or the location manager found we needed a beach that looked empty and a house that's not being used. And if you go to that shot of little boy, little boy Billy and Jody, they're up on the outside and then they run down into the water. And that was we waited for the sun to be perfect and we shot it. And as a shot, if you look at it, it's all the way down the beach and there aren't people.
Right, yeah, it is empty.
It's empty. So it gave us what the reality was. So as soon as we established that, then I think that was just Hank Moonshine's magic, because he had done so many Burt Reynolds films and he knows how to procure these places, and he did. What was not good was the inside of the governor's mansion was not a good place to shoot.
Really?
And it was Hank's idea to build the gazebo.
Oh, so I was wondering if that was part of the property
No.
itself, or
The
if
day after we finished the film, that gazebo was down.
really.
Yeah.
That's
I went out there myself to look at the gazebo, like, my last memory of it and all that, gone. It was gone within 6 hours of the end of the movie.
So really that house was just done for exteriors?
We did shoot scenes. The fight scene with Billy and the guy was a fight scene, and a couple other, but they were limited. They were small spaces. So we did as little as we could, and we tried to shoot as much as we could out on the gazebo.
And I know that, well, I don't know. This is a wonderful bit of story that I can share with you here, because of Will. This piece here that
Yeah.
I may have sent you a picture of this before, and I don't know if you could see along the bottom here. It says, to Will, with all my best regards, from Vaughn. So Vaughn Edwards, your production designer, I guess this was a mock-up of the artwork for the steel pier. And this thing, I don't know if you've seen this ever, or how long it's been that you've seen it, but it's giant. It is.
Oh, no, I've never seen anything that big. Oh, look, you can tell how big it is next to the small photographs.
Yeah, those are 8x10
Wow.
things. I'm gonna.
Where is that?
Well, it is in my house.
That right there?
Yeah, this
Wow.
is. Let me make sure that this is what you're seeing now as well. So.
Wow.
That's
huge.
That's an original one sheet for the film, on top of an 8x10 of John and William McNamara. Some years back, I befriended, for lack of a better word, Will on Facebook.
Yeah.
And we chatted a bit here and there. When I say, now I'm kind of trying to look behind me because it's behind that curtain, but you can't really see it. This thing, the diving horses it's got to be close to 5 feet tall.
Wow.
And it's in this frame, and Will and I would chat here and there. I would obviously talking to him about Stealing Home. I had remembered about Back to School, which I also like quite a bit. And I would talk to him about some of the things that I'm saying to you. And he says, you know something, John, if you feel comfortable giving me your address, I have something you may enjoy. And I said, sure. I'm thinking maybe it's a photocopy of a script, or a behind the scenes photo of something. So maybe about 3 weeks later, I get a note. At the time, I'm living in an apartment building. I get a note that I have an oversized package at the front. And I mean, this thing probably weighed 50 or 60 pounds, packed up in a giant cardboard with foam and this. And I said, what is this? Like, I didn't recognize a return address. I don't think it had Will's name as a return address. And I open this thing, and I see the word steel, and then I see pier, and I said, and it hits me. And now it's like I'm a kid at Christmas time ripping this box open to see what it is. And there's this thing. And Stephen, when I tell you, I mean, I'm 50, I'm almost 53 next week. This was probably, I was, 48, 49 years old. I just crumbled. And
Wow.
inside was this note. And
Wow.
it reduced me to tears because not only was it so completely surprising, but here's a man that I did not know really, but whom I admired for decades.
Yeah.
And he just felt, you know what? This is a fan. He's obviously very passionate about the film, and let me give him a heart attack. And I couldn't put that up on my wall fast enough. And it's just something that if my house were burning down, it would be a very tough call what to go after. But seeing this, and I see it every day, I see it several times a day. And
Okay.
there are, when you have something in your life where no matter how often you see it, it just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
It's definitely one of these things. And then to see that weathered final result on the side of the building when Jody and young Billy are talking,
That's
uh,
right.
it's just a magical thing to say, I have very obviously a piece of production art from this film. And do you recall where this pier is?
Um, I don't record it. It was in striking distance of Seaside Heights, not far from the governor's mansion and all that stuff. The exact location I don't remember. Um,
Because
it was pretty random because it wasn't it was a pier, but it wasn't they weren't selling anything there. It was kind of a I think it was about 20 or 30 minutes from the governor's manse.
really,
Yeah,
that's interesting because you see here on the poster where it says the boardwalk at Virginia Avenue, and there is a Virginia Avenue, and obviously there's a boardwalk. And I
right.
thought perhaps that building where they were standing in front of, where that painting was actually at the boardwalk in Virginia Avenue. Because truth be told, it's going to happen one of these days. I'm going down there to just kind of get a little closer to some of these places. I'm sure I won't get within spitting distance of the governor's mansion. But I would really love to set foot on Island Beach State Park and just
Yeah.
kind of feel those vibes.
Well, if you did, you would to go out onto that dunes and at sunset and look down that beach because it's still probably pretty clear.
Yeah.
Was really special. Um, yeah, I think that that what Will did is Will. Will was incredibly generous, and he would send always amazing gifts and presents. Um, and so it's so great that he sent it to you. It's proper. I have the one that you see in the in Jody's her family's Chandler house where Mark comes over and sees it. Then we have that flashback of that scene.
Right. What he was about to give the ashes back to
Yeah,
Katie's parents.
Katie's parents, and then gets up and has the revelation. He knows what to do, and so I have that in my office at home.
And clearly you've named your production company
Yeah,
aptly.
yeah,
Um, and
no,
so as long as we're talking about like the poster and things like that, um, Mark Harmon was on the Rich Eisen interview show. It's the sportscaster, this
mhm.
who does a lot of interviews. And I don't know if Rich is a big Stealing Home fan, but I imagine he is. Mark had a Billy Wyatt baseball bat, and we've kind of gone back and forth about this a little bit. Um, were the bats made like secondary, like as a like a cast gift? Were they made for the production? Because I've seen pictures where it's a Louisville Slugger and it actually says Billy Wyatt on the bat.
Yeah, it
And
does. I
and
have, when I get home and, when you make sure you send me your address and stuff, but I think I probably have a couple, I don't remember, I can't remember whether Mark did it or it was on the production. But we had it during the film. I know he
really,
ordered it somewhere in between, and and he used it. He swung with it, and it's pretty heavy bat. I think he made about 12 of them, and I've given them out occasionally. So I'd be more than delighted to give, if I can find one down there, so that when I get back home, I'd be delighted to send you that if you would enjoy that.
it would be it would go right next to Will's poster. That
Great,
would
great. I like that.
then both of you could reduce me to rubble. It's one of those things where I feel like if there were anything symbolic of that movie, it's either the bat or the little baseball pendant that I'm sure you are wearing to this day.
I that pendant, yeah, that pendant was an important. That was an important piece. And
It
that was
tied
reality. That was reality. I was given a pendant by the Jody
really
character. Yeah.
that
And
that pendant very definitely pieces the past and the present.
yeah,
Yeah, it's really almost even more important than what that bat could stand for. But that pendant brings Billy home.
then yeah, because it was, remember, it was her comment was, remember, this is who you are. This
You're
is
always
who you are. And I think that's the other part of the movie that some people resonate, because I teach a dreams course.
yes,
And I think what that means, the pendant, and saying the words, this is who you are, is resonates with a lot of people as an idea, because who am I? Am I doing who I'm meant to be? Am I following my own path? And she was very clear that you're a baseball player. That's who you are. You're not a genius. You're not a musician. You're not any of those things. What you are is a baseball player, and you have to follow that however it runs. And I always loved that at the end of the movie, that he was gonna keep baseball in his life. In his whether he went on coaching or did whatever he did, but he would never lose that pendant. Remember, he gave the pendant away like an
right.
idiot.
Well, I mean, at the time he's losing his virginity, and the girl
Yeah.
says, "Can I
Oh
have
yeah.
your necklace?"
And it
So,
doesn't mean anything. He's young, he
no,
doesn't understand it.
right.
So getting that pendant back, I think, is one of the themes you're talking about that's hard to put words to. It's getting yourself back to who you are.
Absolutely.
And when you begin to feel like someone, when he goes over to her house and gets the pendant from her and then runs out to do the ashes, the audience is feeling, they're loving the fact that he's reclaiming himself.
And Billy is back.
And
And
that's the theme. That theme for me is my center theme for everything I write. It's always about finding your way back to who you are, or finding out who you are, and then realizing the empowerment. And once he knew who he was, once he got the pendant back, once he took care of the ashes, he was reborn.
and I also know that you feel very strongly about synchronicity.
Yeah, very strong.
And I'm no James Lipton, but I do my work. Uh, but it's all very much tied together. You said that you had a pendant, very similar situation.
Yeah,
What
she
did
gave
that?
me the
What was your pendant?
St. Christopher's pendant that she gave me, um, and of course I lost it somewhere along the line. Something happened, but because that was a complex relationship, that was based on reality. Um, I got involved with her, with Jodie's character that summer, but I didn't look for it. She kind of came to me, and I was 4 years younger than her. I was 16. I was, I didn't know anything. and she
Huge
kept,
parallels.
uh,
Huge parallels.
yeah, she was an extraordinary, the person it's based on. And by the way, Jodie looks like her. I mean,
Really.
that's, you asked me about the casting. The other thing about the casting, when Jodie left the interview, I said, well, she looks like, my friend. And so yeah, that made this summer even more confusing. But that's what we wanted. That's what we went back to. Let's write about what we know. Let's write about the confusion of being 16, involved with this girl. What are you going to do? And then we changed it because she becomes basically the angel, right? She's the one who says,
Oh yeah.
wear this, don't forget who you are. And he remembers that all through the crap. And so she, even though she's off screen, she's totally affecting the entire movie.
And one of the sort of final things, sentiments that you hear Mark's voiceover is, I sure wish Katie was here.
Yeah.
And it's, as they're going through that lineup and you're back in that sort of present day, you have Harold Ramis with
Yeah.
the older Robin Parks in the
Right.
stand. And he's still sort of daydreaming and kind of, you can't think anything other than he's thinking about where he was and how he got back to where he was. And it's all Katie, it's the pendant,
Yep.
and
Yep. Yep.
it's the connectivity of his
Yep.
friend. Um,
Yeah. And all that, by the way, was shot post movie. We shot that down in San Bernardino. And the beginning of the movie and the stealing home and walking with Appleby at the end of the movie, that was all extra shooting there. Mark actually had part ownership in a team. Yeah, there you go.
yeah,
And
the
part,
spirit.
you see the guy in the back, go back to that again, that
Yeah,
picture.
sure. Let me get back right to it.
The guy in the back is me in the third base coach.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take another look back at that. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, there are a couple of things. Mark had to leave early, so I also filled in for him when he was singing up at the in the radio booth at the top of the stadium.
Yeah.
The distant shot.
There you are.
Yeah, there I am.
Oh, that's great.
I love that shot. Can you make a shot out of that
like a print.
photo? Is that
Uh,
possible or is that not possible?
you mean a physical print?
Yeah. No, just like a snapshot of it. I don't know.
Well, that's what I did a screenshot
Okay.
from my
Yeah.
television. I'll send it right to you.
Okay. So yeah, I filled in for him up. It was a distant shot, and I'm sitting in the booth singing or doing something. That was not Mark, that was me, because Mark had to leave.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
This was it was a very, like, it was, you could tell, I think how giddy he was as in that first part of the film when the credits are rolling,
Yeah.
when he's finally kind of setting things up again to come back to where he is now, like this. And
Yeah.
he's really taking pride in being that ball player that he was always told that that's what he was.
And this is the point. The point is, no, he didn't become a pro and a star. He didn't become a great ball player. But what he did was stay in the game. Like I have a son that at I took him to see a movie called Hoop Dreams
Oh, sure.
a long time ago when he was 10. And he walked out of there and he fell in love with basketball. And then he ended up playing. He played in college and then he coached at Cornell and Boston College. And now he's running a little program up at a boarding school in New Hampshire. But he's still in the game. The game is still, it's what Jody said. You're a ball player. Woody, you're a basketball guy. So whatever you do, wherever it comes, and in that scene, he's playing for some double A, triple A, single A team. Doesn't matter. He's doing
Yeah.
what he was born to do,
And clearly loving it.
clearly loving it.
That whole last scene, the slow motion as he steals home
Yeah,
again, uh, when he finally makes it across home plate, and it's still slow motion. Uh, he's grabbing some of the dirt and just kind of
yeah,
throwing it across like,
yeah,
I don't mean to curse intentionally, but I fucking did this,
right.
and I'm this is me, and you could see it on his face, the smile,
Yeah.
that
He's home.
that
He's back to
excitement.
who he is.
He stole home. He's back home.
And that, I think, I haven't thought about this till we're talking about it, but you were saying, why would it resonate with certain people? Because that's a theme about all of us are going through. What are our lives? What do they mean? What am I doing that is relevant? How do I feel connected to purpose? How do I, all that. And in that little moment, that little stealing home, that also, what that really is confidence. Stealing home is confidence. The
Oh,
real stealing home in baseball, that
yeah.
you make it. And when he did make it, that's like saying, he's returned to his being. He is who he is now. And so I could imagine that he would be ended up coaching a high school team, or probably get married with her. Uh, yeah. My wife just dropped me a note that it was Jonathan Demme, not Neil Jordan, who was attached to the movie.
Oh,
Jonathan
wow.
Demme, who's a wonderful, wonderful director,
Absolutely.
and was attached, and we worked on the script with him for a year. But he was very supportive, and then he went off. He went off so to do something else, and we ended up, back. I mean, as I told you, it was 4 years. It's such a journey, but he was the first guy up as a director, so
And then he got to work with Jody anyway.
he got to work with Jody anyway. That's exactly right.
There's
Wow.
there's that moment when Mark Harmon is at third base
Yeah.
after he gets that triple. And in thinking about what you're saying as far as the confidence, the returning to who you are,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's intentional, but after seeing the movie 101 times, you pick up on almost everything, including, I should say, at the outfield wall with all the banners of all the different shops and companies and whatever. There's a Wyatt construction company or something like that. I don't know
Really?
if that was intentional or
No, no,
just
but that's what's happening when things are falling into place. Synchronicity is working its magic. By
and so
the way, one of the things if you go back and listen one more time, when Billy is coming to the plate, and the baseball players, those were real baseball players. That was Rich Dower from Baltimore, who was playing the coach. The picture was an angel picture. I forget his name. These were guys that Mark was friends with, and he pulled in real baseball guys. But when he comes up to bat, I put in something. I put in, now filling in for Costner.
I've got to take a look again at that.
Take a look at that. Now filling in for Costner, Billy Wyatt.
That's fantastic. Well, that's
Harmon loved that.
I guarantee you there isn't a person outside of this conversation that knows about that uh,
No,
as a
no,
fan. But what I was going to say was there is a look on Mark's face that I find so, and to get some of these screen captures, I was watching that scene over and over again. But after he hustles into third base and he's standing there waiting for the pitcher to go into his stance to pitch,
yeah,
right before he runs, there's this look almost where he takes this breath, or he exhales like, I'm going to do this again.
yeah,
I did it 20 years earlier uh, at Carlton, but
Garden,
I'm going to do it again. Like it's almost like he's having this moment of clarity, like
yeah,
I've come back this far now to really get home. Let
right,
me let me steal home again. And I don't know if it was ever intentional, but I find that it's one of these moments where it also encapsulates his he's he's back.
He's back. No, that's one of the things that is terrific about this conversation is that it's putting words to what we were trying to do. And what we were trying to do there is exactly say, A, it's never too late. That, you know, at 30, whatever he was, in a bad motel, whatever, gets this assignment, and the assignment leads him to that third base. And we all saw him steal home when he wanted to catch the train or had to go or whatever he was doing. And now coming, that breath he's taking is saying, I can do this. Exactly. And I'm telling you, that's the message I do in my dreams course. It's the message I do everywhere, that it's when we take risk and it's when we follow ourselves and not the whims of other people that things come awake. And I think that's what, finally, I think that's what the theme is that resonates underneath the kind of on the unconscious. It's asking, you know, it's a hopeful message, you know.
So I don't I know that there's a limit of time here with things that you might need to do, but before we were to go, I would in talking with you, it seems, whether, I don't know if it's a conscious thing on your part or not, but the other things that you're involved with, especially this dreams course, and
Yeah.
as you're talking about it related to stealing home, it sounds to me, just in talking with you a little, stealing home is still very much a part of your life, whether it's something that's outward, maybe when you have a conversation with a fan like me, or in doing some of the other things that resonate with you personally and professionally, that some of those messages that you put into the production of Stealing Home, because it had such a personal element to it in your life, it remains there as sort of, maybe it's your angel a little bit. Maybe maybe that Katie Chandler character, the one that you had in your life, continues to sort of walk with you a little bit, and maybe some of these other things that you're doing, you might not think, oh, and that Stealing Home parallel, or with this character or that character, but it still seems to be a very prominent part of your life.
Um, I think that's true. And remember, when we went back, we said, let's write about something we care about. So when people ask me about show business, I always say the same. Don't write the script that you think everyone will want to see. Write the script that you're proud of, that is touches your life in some way. It doesn't matter whether it gets made into a movie. It'd be great if it did. But remember, we were just wanting to write something that cared about, because we were assuming we were done out of show business. And the truth of it is, that gave us work because of the exact opposite. Studios, what they do is when they read Stealing Home, we got a lot of meetings because they wanted us to take the crap that they're owning, you know, like I Dream of Jeannie, they had a bad version of that, and wanted us to take, they knew we had confidence as a writer from Stealing Home, they wanted us to make that into something good. But my view always has been, don't wait to write something good in your life, because by the time you get there, if you're writing crap to make a living, you won't know how to write something that you care about. So we wrote about something we cared about, and that journey led to really 20 years of writing. I've written 30 scripts. I've written, by the way, all my characters, including a pilot I shot, are all called one family. They're all the Wyatts.
Is that right?
So my great follow-up with Will, which is my best work, but the darker work, is a follow-up to Stealing Home called Great Shame. And I haven't been able to get it made, but it's the best writing that both of us ever did.
It's
Tough.
a screenplay?
Two Wyatt brothers, cousins to Billy, and set in New York. And one brother is of the film, works in the Philharmonic, and the other has returned home with problems from being in the Iraq War. So he's got kind of, you know, those kind of issues, and it's about a Thanksgiving between these two brothers. And it's the same, it's a darker version, but at the end, light wins, light wins, light overcomes darkness. And in a movie like Stealing Home, I think that ending is positive. It's
very much.
positive. It leaves you feeling good. It doesn't feel you like, and I think that also carries through the stuff I do, no matter how dark or whatever you're dealing with, it's got to end that light wins over dark. It has to.
I think that's fantastic. I think that, and it's a really true statement. By the end of Stealing Home, you're not still sitting there thinking, gee, Katie shot herself. Billy's dad was killed in a car accident or anything like that. You are up. You are excited and happy and seeing the completeness of these characters. I love that moment when Billy shows up in front of Applebee's Sporting Goods,
Yeah.
in Katie's red VW, and there's that David Foster something in the background with a saxophone and whatever, and you see Applebee's Sporting Goods, and you're just sitting there like, they're back together. It's like this reunion, and he bangs on the glass, Applebee. And from inside he just goes, hey Bill. It's always, and Harold with his distinct voice,
Yeah.
go Bill, hey Bill. And it's a happy feeling. And I can't tell you, I've been trying to have this conversation with you for over 30 years, one way or the other, and I can't tell you what it does for me inside. I'm containing myself now, and after this is over, I will have that exhale on the third baseline, and I will say I did it. And
You're good at it, by the way.
thank you.
I actually mean that, because I've done a lot of interviews and stuff, and I really feel what the gift here that we're doing is we're having a conversation, period. It's a conversation. And you ask good questions, you express things that you feel. It's been good for me in the sense of it's a reminder of the reasons we did Stealing Home. It's a reminder of the relationship I had with Will, who was, the writing I did with Will is for all the years that we worked together was just so satisfying, and that he's not around anymore is sad to me. I miss him, and I miss him in the sense of the working together. We knew we had a third voice, and we only wrote out of that third voice. We didn't write out of my voice or his. It had to be that, which was the combo of us. And when we were in rhythm, we had total confidence in it. I mean, we just went, this is good. We got it. And so also part of the movie is remembering all the steps we had to go through to get it made. And I'm so glad I had a partner and a friend to do it with.
Are you in touch with anybody from the production cast or crew?
Oh, well, Mark, he sent me, he sends me things all the time. Like he sent me Mike Schmidt's baseball shoes. He does crazy crap. He does jackets, and he'll send me a hat every once in a while of something. And I will tell him today that I'll send him a note so that I did an interview today, and tell him about you and all that. I think he would appreciate this very much.
That would mean a lot to me too.
Yeah.
If I ever had a chance, it's one of those things. If I ever had a chance to meet Mark Harmon or Jodie Foster, for crying out loud, the first inclination is to talk to her about Taxi Driver or The Accused,
Right.
or Signs of Women. But it would be impossible for me to do anything I love so many things. I've been watching Mark Harmon since he'd get a kick out of knowing that there's a guy that remembers a TV show he did called 240 Robert, uh,
Right.
where he played a cop, a rescue cop back in the late 70s, early 80s. But he has been in so many things that I adore.
Yeah.
For me, this is Mark Harmon is this movie. This movie is Mark Harmon and Jodie and all of these great people. I waited years and years to finally meet Jonathan Silverman, and as accomplished as he is, I said, "Do you know?" I went through eBay to find a picture of him from Stealing Home that he would sign, and he got a great kick out of it because I think it's such a sleeper hit of a film,
Yeah.
but the fans are tremendous, and I just wish that more people talked about it.
Yeah.
I wish that it had a bigger fan base than it already does. But I could tell when I met Jonathan that uh, he really got a kick out of someone not talking to him about Brighton Beach Memoirs or
Right.
Weekend at Bernie's.
Right. And Mark would be the same way. Mark, remember that Mark has a loyalty factor, and the fact that we stood by him and pinch hitting for Costner, he really appreciated that we went to bat for him. That we, I wasn't, I felt Mark was perfect for the movie. I thought he was fine for the movie, and he remembers that. He remembers loyalty, and he's a tremendous person. You would love him. He's he's real. He's professional. He's he does crap like the bats. I'm sure that was him getting the bats made and then giving them to different people. Now that I think about it, it wasn't a production. It was Mark, and that's the kind of person he was. But it all goes back to us saying to David Picker, "No, we want Harmon." and
And
then and then that began that relationship of having to shoot a test with him, and Picker never wanting him and all that, and then finally dropping us. And so he stayed loyal to the movie. He'll send me things that somebody ran into someone in Germany or something. I wish I had a more of a platform for it, because I think a lot of people still could enjoy it, because I think in the bottom line of our conversation, the theme we're talking about is not a generational theme. It's a human theme. It's about who are you? Who are you?
I agree, and I may not have really recognized that until we were talking, because you see the film and it takes place in the 50s, 60s, 80s, whatever it is. So you think of that generational period because of the movie takes place there, instead of thinking about it's an almost an individualized kind of thing. Who is Billy Wyatt? Who is Alan Appleby? Who are you? Uh, and as you said, the movie resounds, resonates with people, um, because I think in some ways it makes you think that for yourself. Who am I? Am I like Billy Wyatt? Can I go through this low period and then come back and steal home, so to speak, and reclaim myself? Uh,
Right.
and I think it's just a brilliant example of, yeah, you can do that.
And those are the kind of films that, for me, I mean, I love the look of Stealing Home, because I always loved the look of a movie like Summer of '42.
I
I
think
love,
about that a lot. Summer of
yeah,
42.
and that had beautiful music, and it had a beautiful look. And even the John Hughes movies always had great looks in them. Oh, like Home Alone, where there was beauty, and we wanted to have, you know to show scenes and stuff that were nice to look at, easy on the eye, making you want to, so going back into the 50s or 60s, that was really fun to do. And even the 80s, because the 80s, now Stealing Home would never get made. Never, ever, ever. Now, I just don't think there would be you know, I have a lot of writer friends and people that are really struggling because the studios treat writers much worse than when we did. Writers still had a say when I was working, and now they don't. That's why they're on strike.
Yeah, and it's shameful because there are so many things that without good writing, the movie just falls flat. And
All the shows you like, if it's Succession, if you look at a movie, TV show like Succession, the writing, listen to everyone says the actors are great. They are great, but they're also, the writing is great.
yeah,
It starts with I said to the cast before on the first production day, everyone was around and sitting there, and I said, we're all here because of this script. And we're going to serve this script. That's what it's about. It's not about one person. It's about serving and realizing this script. That's why you're here. The actors took the job, the other people took the job, and that's what we're going to do. That's our focus.
with the script itself, were there a lot of revisions compared to the final shooting script? Did you have to go through a lot of revisions based or
You would go through revisions maybe if you had to change locations, but the beauty of being an improvisational background and an actor is changes could be made on the spot. So that you could go, we don't need that scene. I can cut over to here. Let's shoot this over here and we'll lose this dialogue. So, you know, I might have them improvise for a little bit. Harold Ramis always had everybody do the lines, and then he would shoot something that would be improvised. You know, just see what you do, what kind of comedy do you bring out of it. So here, the script, we served the script, but if there was a problem, we would change it. But I didn't have to go to the writer I could do it. That didn't work. Add this word, do this word. Like I had a big fight with the producer of the film about the sex scene with the girl at Miriam Flynn played. You know, he wanted to see nudity, and I said, no, no, no. I don't. If we'd shown the dad's accident, that's what they would do now. They'd show the accident. We don't need to see the accident. We don't want to see the accident. We know
no,
the effect of it. We
no,
don't. So, you know, they wanted her to be nude, and I said, no, you're taking the innocence out of it. It's
oh
it's
yeah,
much more funny to say Appleby, by the way, to say you had sex with my prom date than it is to say you fucked my prom date.
absolutely.
The
And
word sex with it, and that was a big battle. We won. I said, there's something about, we need this to be funny. The word fuck is not going to help us here. You fucked my prom date. No, you had sex with my prom date. You had sex with my prom date.
that's so great. And
One club after another being thrown.
it's the whole A plus B plus C plus equals the big F in theory on the 4th of July or at the prom. But and the humor was right there. The humor was with Miriam Flynn, and the innocence was the the um, the repartee, I guess, between Billy McNamara and
Look at all that.
this
Love
girl.
these shots. I love all these shots.
These I've all these photos live on my phone. They've been there for years and years, and some of them are not great quality, but again, if you're a fan of the film, you know what you're looking at. But this one down in the center between
Yeah.
Billy McNamara and this young lady named Yvette, who I can't seem to find anywhere on social media.
She was another example of taking it first time. I wanted the innocence. I wanted her not to be an experienced actress. I wanted her to feel awkward. And
Well,
so,
the payoff with that is when they're standing face to face after they've had a few slugs of the rum and Pepsi,
yeah.
Where she says, I've been in love with you since the 3rd grade. And and then she starts taking her clothes off, but you could see the awkwardness. And almost when she puts her hands on his face to kiss him, you can almost see her hands tremble a little bit.
Mm.
But I think when she's undoing her skirt, to reveal herself, that the whole thing reeks of innocence.
Right. Well,
Um,
and the shot of him running down, which we set up, that was a shot of running afterwards when
yeah,
he's lost his virginity, and the blue light. It's, and of course that's meant to be because it is innocent. It's not hard edged. It's a moment. He didn't see the moment coming,
no,
and
not at
and
all.
as he didn't see the moment from the next shot after that of his father dying. And that's where the rhythm of the movie is: comedy, go down, come up, go down, move, it's musical finally. I mean, you begin to think as a writer and a director in terms of rhythm. And if you're gonna have a heavier piece, that's why the taking the shots out of it or showing showing the accent of the father would have killed a certain innocence about the movie.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that one of those additional payoff moments, whether it's innocence or comedy or somewhere in between, I think that the actors then are able to carry those moments perfectly, because it, I think they're probably going on their own, some of their own experiences. I know a lot of these actors, were playing characters that were basically that same age, so there probably wasn't a lot of, there wasn't a big stretch for them to sort of play the role, so to speak.
Right. They were exactly. And so, it makes me think that, nowadays with what we're going through and everything, to be able to make a movie of a recall of innocence in whatever the subject matter is, but to remind us that it's not all cynical, it's not all this and that. It's somewhere in there. There has to be that that thing that happens when you don't have all the answer. You're not cynical. Summer 42 had it. It's captured. People still have it. It just,
Yeah.
it just doesn't get the play. But if I were to write something now, it would be capturing that to remind us this is what also is important in our lives.
This is and I don't know what your timetable is like, but I wanted to show you this.
Well, I'd love to do one thing. I'd love to do. I definitely will want you to send me your address. I would love you to send me any, if you wouldn't mind, anything of some pictures from photos. I have nothing from the movie.
Really? Oh, I would be absolutely glad to.
'Cause I'll save them to a separate thing, and I can send it to Mark. I can send it, and I'll say, I got an interview with you, and remember this shot. Wow,
Yeah,
look at that.
yeah.
Wait a minute.
That's Alan Appleby.
Wow.
Yeah, this is last year at a pop culture convention in New Jersey. Yeah,
Oh,
I don't know if I can, but he wrote "Be My Friend" on the picture there. Um, and he was actually, Jonathan was being very careful with things. He had his face mask, but to take the picture, he took his mask off, which I truly appreciated. But I think that it just is part of the kind of guy that he is, that he was really enjoying the few minutes that I had to chat with him to let him know just how much the movie meant to me.
I love, if you would do that for me, and I'll do the baseball bat, I'll find a bat for you. That would be really great.
It would be my absolute pleasure, and boy, would that be. I was just going to say I would just love to hold the bat one of these days,
Oh,
and
you'll get it. If I have one, you'll get it. I
well,
think I do. I just have to look and I have to look in a certain place, but I think Mark sent me in a box, like 10 or 11, and there might be one
oh
or two around, and that will have your name on it if it's true.
wow, that's what a great thing that is, and it would sit proudly next to Will's poster, and
Wow. Yeah, I
um,
love all that. I love that Will sent you that. I think I remember that I'm now remembering that he did that, but wow.
and, there was there were a series of TV films over the last bunch of years with Tom Selleck, where he plays a police officer named Jesse Stone.
Yeah.
Um, and there were 8 or 9 films made. They're all quite good. And I was watching one of them because my girlfriend is a big Tom Selleck fan. Who isn't, I suppose. So as we're going through movie after movie, one of them comes on and it says production designed by Vaughn Edwards. And I stopped the DVD and I said, "Oh, Lee," it's my girlfriend. "Guess who Vaughn Edwards is?" "Who is it?" "Well, he was the production designer on
Yeah.
Stealing Home."
He did a hell of a job, by the way.
And I mean, I love this poster so much, I can't even tell you.
It's fantastic.
And you know, she's not as immersive as I am with my movies and TV tidbits and things. But every time I talk about Stealing Home to her and almost to anybody, there's something that I guess comes out of me or that they see on my face, that is that I did a research paper when I was still in college, not long after you had called me. I was taking a film class and I did had to have been 12, 13-page paper on why this movie must be seen, what this movie means to me. I wish to God I still had the paper, but I got a damn good grade. I do remember. And it'd be the kind of thing where now these days online you could find almost anything. And I keep searching for like a download Stealing Home to read the script so I can see how things were shot, because now I'm a very technical, I love the technical stuff, not just the watching the films. This movie,
Yeah. What?
sorry,
No, you know, it's interesting because when we wrote it, of course, none of this existed. I mean, we
no,
wrote it by hand and then we had someone type it.
I did all of this. One of the last times I was watching the film, I had a little laptop, and when things would come up, I would just type, and these are just notes, so I don't forget at least a few things. I'm sure I forgot. And but it's the kind of thing where if I ever get a chance to meet somebody who has had an impact in my life, on my life, one way or the other, the thing that means the most to me is to be able to let them know, and in this case it's you, you have been so important to me
Mm,
in my love of film.
mm.
And I am so glad that I took that videotape from my friend and said, all right, Jodie Foster, I'll give it a shot. Baseball, I'll give it a shot." And had I not done that, there would be something missing. And I believe it. It's I don't mean to sound strangely whatever the word is, but even earlier today, driving from one place to the other, I was listening to the soundtrack. And as soon as that theme, David Foster's theme, it wells me up,
I know it's
because I think about him pushing the little thing on the with the chalk line, or I think about the gazebo scene and "I Love You, Billy Boy."
good boy. Yeah. Is there anything before we get off on that list that you didn't ask me that you would like to before we get off?
I think that the things that mattered most have come out. Um, and even things like "Touch the Drain" and seeing Harold and Mark walking around drunk singing "Poison Ivy," fantastic.
Will was a big factor in the music.
Was he?
Yeah,
Oh,
he was
that's
big knowledge,
oh,
love music, big knowledge, played the guitar and stuff. So his opinions of what to use were taken seriously.
it's a great soundtrack, and I will say that the last line of the film always gets me laughing. I was talking to Robin Parks in the stand, when you stole home again, and I asked her if you ever said that I wanted to go to the prom with it. "I did, Appleby. Trust me." "I don't trust you, Bill." And then Poison Ivy starts coming, and it's just the great way to button up the film. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure I told you was the use of the line between young Billy and Robin and old Billy and Robin.
Hmm.
Well, you look great. I do? Yeah. So do you. I do? Yeah. And they said it as teens and they said it as adults exactly the same. And I loved it. It was just one of those things where maybe somebody wouldn't pay attention, like, hey, didn't they say that when they were
Right.
16 years old? And I just thought it was very cute. And I really was hoping that Robin Parks was going to factor in again, and was so glad when she did, and that she had Billy's pendant.
She had Billy's pendant. Well, before we get off, I want to thank you because um, I don't get to speak about this film very often. It means a lot for 1,000 reasons. But I think the biggest thing that came from today for both of us is the question you posed in the beginning about how do I put words to feelings? Why is this affecting me? And it's clear to me what's affecting what is clear to me about the movie is it's about the self. It's about living the life that has meaning to us. And when we get away from that, that doesn't mean we can't find ourselves way back to the path. And I think more than baseball or Jodie Foster or Mark Harmon or any of it, that theme never ever goes away. That's a
Uh,
theme that's just true for any great film. Will have some element about someone risking to be who they are or returning back to what they've given up. And that's very American in that sense, because in this sense, he had a second chance and he did it. And because I always like the fact that he finds himself because he finds out who he is when he figures out where to bury her.
that's that's perfect. Yeah, wait, I know what to do. It's perfect.
And when he knows what to, and she knew it. That's why she gave him the assignment. Because remember, he didn't want the assignment. He was like, I don't want to do this. And you have to do it. And now he's worrying, what am I going to do with it and all this? And when he figures it out, her brilliance was that was the moment when they were down, and that I enjoyed. I love, probably from a speech point of view, her speech about pina coladas down on the deck where she's dancing. And notice what she did. Remember, she came to me in the very first day of shooting when the parents are leaving and she's by the fence and doing ballet moves. And Jodie Foster is so good because think about it. I said, sure, that's fine. I don't care. Not knowing that she had already figured out that she wanted to do a pirouette in the scene where she looked, yeah, Billy boy, that's what I want. I want to run, fly with the birds, do this, and then go down and have pina coladas. That's it. But she as an actress did the pirouette in the beginning to establish that she was a dancer.
Exactly. And that last look after you actually see them
Yeah,
get to the pier and she's going to fly up and then in my lover will come and swing down. She's very fluid and graceful
absolutely.
and beautiful.
And wistful. She looks at it, yeah, Billy,
Yeah,
that's what I wanted. That's what I want
yeah,
to do. And that is her moment. That's like he returns her to what she wanted. I want to, this is who I am. I want to do
yeah.
this. So when he returns that favor to her, in that moment, his old self is awakened.
It's perfect. And I again, hearing you say it, I associate it more succinctly. The pained look on her face, that wistful, as you called it,
Yeah.
when yeah, that's what I would love to do. And you see in her face, she's hurting and she's
Yeah. She's hurting because she doesn't, because, and that's like the real person that I wrote this about. The tragedy of her was she was ahead of herself. She was very talented. She got she was in Florida, but she got accepted to an acting school in London. She was smart. She was sexy. She was the full deal, but she didn't she didn't connect with anyone, and that's why her life was a tragedy. She couldn't connect. And when we don't connect, that's when, that's when the problems begin. And that look she's giving is someone who wants to connect but doesn't know how or where. She's finding it in a little boy more than anyone else.
Right. And it parallels again with Mark Harmon on the third baseline, the look on his face,
Yeah.
that exhalation, that realization, I have found it. I've taken care of Katie and I've taken care of myself, and now I can steal home.
That's it. Now I can steal home and move on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
well, thank you for today. You've given me a
Thank
gift.
you. I
I didn't know what to expect, but I've always appreciated your passion and your knowledge, and I've never had a conversation more in depth about the movie than I did today, and I thank you for that.
and from the bottom of my heart, Stephen, thank you so much. And I will send you those pictures.
Send me whatever, because I did it, when I look at it, I go, why don't I have any of these? And also, when I get back in October, I'll look for the bat. So send me your address. Make sure I have all that in a text message, and then if I have it, you're going to own a bat.
It's unbelievable
The only
to
reason it won't work is because I don't have any, but I think I just have a feeling I know where one is.
that
So
would be fantastic. And if I may, we're coming up to that point of a point of time in the year where I've been known to find myself in Blairstown,
yeah,
looking at locations for a couple other reasons, which I mentioned. Um, i- if you're really if Blairstown is close to where you are, I would love to shake your hand one day and maybe get you to sign my DVD cover, as well as Billy McNamara
absolutely.
signed it.
Absolutely. We'll stay in touch. We'll be back in New Jersey, probably mid-October. Then we're gonna go out and see one of my son and his families. But we'll be back, so no other plans. So if that works out or you're down that way, just text me.
I would love that. That would really be special.
Thank you again. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for taking so much of your time. And again, thank you and God bless Will for creating this movie that means so much to me and other people.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We'll
Bye-bye.
talk soon. Bye.
Soon. Yeah.
Great.
Bye.
Bye-bye.